A common fear for many come summertime, thanks in large part to this. When Jaws the movie came out in 1975, although it was supposed to be set in Martha's Vineyard, there hadn't been a real fatal shark attack in New England in nearly 40 years. And for decades after the film's release, that hiatus continued. But then last September, as you know, 26-year-old Arthur Medici was killed by a great white on a beach in Wellfleet. Now this summer, Cape Cod beaches have already been closed several times thanks to shark spottings that were a little too close for comfort. And experts are warning people not to go more than waist deep into the water. But how big is the threat really? As author Neil Swidey notes in a new Globe magazine piece, the odds of being killed by a shark are less than 1 in 3 million, and we're more likely to die of a bee sting, so why are so many of us still so scared? Neil Swidey joins me along with, hi Neil, by the way, how are you? By David Ropeik, a risk analysis consultant and the author of How Risky Is It Really? Why Our Fears Don't Always Match the Facts. David, it's great to see you too. Thanks so much for being here. So sharks are back, tourists are scared, homeowners are nervous on the Cape, realtors are apoplectic. The conventional wisdom is the real culprit is the seal population. But is that correct?
You know, it's not clear. You know, this is what's... It's definitely a huge contributor to it. The seal population, as you know, had been wiped out for many years. It is back better beyond the wildest imagination of conservationists, but I think some of the protections that were in place for sharks have done more to keep them around.
What's the great line from, what's the name of the guy who's the shark expert from Massachusetts?
Greg Scommel.
Yeah. Greg Scommel says they want to be where the meat is, a gray seal cafe. But didn't you also write about going out into Cape Cod Bay where there were virtually no seals and you saw a ton of sharks, which right. I know that's not scientific analysis, but it sort of undercuts the whole notion. Kill the seals and we don't have to worry about the sharks, right?
Yeah, I think that it's too late for kill the seals anyway, that approach would work on its own.
Okay, so David, I am one of those people I was describing a couple of minutes ago. I know what the statistics are. I am scared. And at the top of the show before you got here, I think I quoted you by saying it's more likely to be killed by a cow.
Yeah.
Could you explain that to me first of
all?
So
statistically, cows falling over on people kill more people than sharks.
That is not really true.
Absolutely true.
Okay.
They're both pretty small, and I wouldn't worry about either going into a field or going into the ocean. But the question you're asking is why, if it's so statistically small, are you writing stories about it in the Globe, and are we having this conversation?
What's the answer to the question?
The reason is the statistics aren't why we're afraid or not.
Why are we afraid?
It's the nature of how we become dead, not the likelihood that we will.
You mean the gruesome nature of the thing?
The gruesome way of
so, for example,
it's how you die, not that you will.
So I looked up today before you got here. It is 50 times more likely that you'd be killed by lightning. I am totally unafraid of lightning, but I'm petrified of a shark attack because of the comparative gruesome nature.
It's the nature of how you go, not the odds that you will. And another quick comparison, we have for 70 years been more afraid of cancer than heart disease, which kills tens of thousands of more of us because of the nature of what that death in our mind and heart feels like. It's the nature of how you die, not the odds.
What does it say about us that the facts don't matter? When I say us, I'm making it sound like I'm blaming. Again, me. What does it say about me that I know the facts, intellectually I have them, maybe not as precisely as you, doesn't matter to me at all?
We're not intellectual beings. We're instinctive beings about survival, and cognitively, we do our feelings first, and then we add the facts in, and how we feel about those facts, that shapes how we behave.
So you interviewed the widow of the man who changed the world, by the way, Peter Benchley's
widow. Oh, God, that was a great interview, by the way.
I love this.
Good score.
And could you describe a little bit what she said to you about not only his later life after making millions on Jaws, but how he would have written it differently, she suggests, had he written it much later? Why?
Well, it's interesting. As you alluded to at the outset, people didn't know much about sharks in 1974. Peter Benchley didn't know much about sharks until he used his dividend from all that money he made from Jaws to go out and talk to researchers who at that point were just starting to tag and find out more about what was going on. And basically he said, this whole idea of the vengeful shark who's going to target a community and go after it, which was the underbelly of
his
Jaws.
Shark. Yeah.
His shark is not supported by any of the research we have. That being said, we don't know a lot about sharks because you can't hook them up to electrodes in a lab.
So does anybody have a coherent, thoughtful plan to deal with this? I mean, things like not going too deeply into the water, I mean, when I was on the Cape after all this was happening, I was mentioning to you guys, I would see people going out surfing almost so far out that you couldn't make them out. Does somebody have a credible plan for dealing with this until the big idea comes up?
I think short of the big idea and short of solutions, it really is prudence, not panic. And what you said is the best advice so far on this, which is waist high, cool off, but don't spend a lot of time in there. Also know where you are. If you're on Nantucket Sound, there have really been, at least to this date, no shark sightings of any significance or seal populations there. If you're on the Outer Cape, that's a different story.
So the plan is a personal plan until there's a larger picture plan, yes?
Yeah, I think I sort of equate it to where we are right now with this study we're in the middle of with smartphones and children. We have no idea. We're in a new period right now with sharks, which is that statistical 1 in 4 million is true, but that's worldwide.
That's right.
The statistic is different right now on the Cape.
The odds for Arthur Medici said don't go in the water that day there. That's the point of his death, his tragic death.
So I don't want you to put yourself in his mind, but why would an Arthur Medici, under those circumstances, do what he did at 26 years old?
I don't dare presume for anybody what their choices were, but we think stuff won't happen to me. If we want to do something, we have optimism bias is what it's called. And we do all sorts of risky things all the time, talk ourselves out of, it won't happen to me. Another one, I have control. I'm familiar with these waters. We had a spotter up on the hill, he said. I also know the odds are low. Well, they aren't for that particular piece of water that day. Point being, Arthur wanted to go boogie boarding. God bless him. But he wanted to do something, and so he saw the same facts that we're talking about through another set of emotional lenses.
Okay, so I asked Neil if there was a plan to deal with the sharks. Is there a plan to deal with the fear?
No.
Oh, well, thank you very much for being here.
But,
yes.
But we can take lessons from all of these things and realize that our instinctive emotional way of dealing with risk, whether it's this or cancer or smoking or cell phones and driving, whatever, sometimes makes dangerous mistakes and learn and get smarter generally. But we're still basically instinctively emotional beings. People around the world, Australia, South Africa, that deal with this all the time, there's still people who go in those waters.
I'll be at the hot dog stand. Nice to see you, David. Thanks so much for your time. Your piece is great. Read it, everybody.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Thanks so much,
Thanks so
David
much.
Ropeik, Neil Swidey.